Well, hello everyone. Talk about for voicemail right here, and I'm sure most of us would know what voicemail means. Is that you actually it's an inbox to where you can actually go there just to be able to listen to your messages and just to be able to read any messages of some sort. But a lot of times it sure seems that way that when we speak about voice mail though that yeah, phone numbers that you don't recognize and messages. I'm like, yeah, a lot of messages, from personnel that maybe that if you don't know all of them, and maybe if it's anything that's related to about the fact about yeah that I'm sure most of us are probably thinking too that yeah, well, really that if you're going to be reading any messages right here, that you're going to be reading messages indicating that about messages that you received maybe several weeks ago, some a lot of times. So I'm using this right here as an example right here, a voicemail, but still that whenever it comes to voice messages, though, that there's going to be sales calls, and there's also going to be another way of stating to where. Voice messages that could be wrong numbers. It could also be something else that's indicating to where that yeah maybe just to test the equipment or something like that. But you can see right here that the dates for whenever I was writing these messages right here, and this right here is actually based on a meeting room. So let's just say that if you're going to be if you're just going to be testing the equipment a lot of times, and a lot of times everybody else would say too that if you're going to be using WebEx software, if you're going to be using maybe the Zoom communication software, something like that, or maybe GoToMeetings, and 102 that hey that whenever you do whenever you I'm like yeah whenever you set an account for anything that you're working on, right, and you see these options right here that says to where you can go ahead and insert a picture, and also attach send an attachment, and then also any sorts of GIF files or something, and then plus import any sorts of message. So it sure seems that way that when we speak about voicemail, though, that it does voicemail pretty much mean is toward that you would check that inbox, right? For any messages, for any audio recorded messages that you may have missed, from earlier in the week, or maybe anything from last week that you're following up with. And so it sure seems that way that the best way of how to describe voicemail, it's like an answer machine, right? And it's basically what it is. It's an answer machine, but it seems like to me though that you're always having to constantly check these apps, such as if it's going to be Skype, or if it's going to be WebEx, or if it's the Zoom app or something like that. But like everybody else might even say that each time you sign in, whenever you do log on to an account, that you're constantly are checking just to make sure that okay, yeah, that about your activity a lot of times. So it sure seems that way that yeah, any source of attention or anything like that you may think that you go ahead and you go into your account, and then you might see that to where that you're not getting any email notifications about any messages, and you recently made message. I'm like, yeah, any received messages. So a lot of times it seems like people might say that we looked at your resume, we reviewed your cover letter and your resume, and we're trying to reach you about a position or something like that. So it sure seems that way that the first, like you might mention on that application, whenever you were applying for a job, you may have mentioned on the application that this right here, call me at this number if you are interested in offering a position, and to me. So I'm available to work this position. So a lot of times it sure seems that way that really that if we've been to that point to where that really, well, why doesn't really matter over the fact about what number or so. And like let's just say that if you're going to have like an account like the Hangouts app, or maybe if it's a Zoom app, or any other source of communication, want to know too that maybe if you don't go to the account very much, but let's just say that on average that you're going to find messages in your email or maybe receiving text messages about, you have about 5 unread messages in your account. So let's just say if it's maybe every 90 days or so that you're going to go ahead and check your account just to see what messages that you received. And so a lot of times it sure seems that way that when we speak about voice messages a lot of times, and you want to know too that, hey, that those voice messages, right? With those voice messages, that whenever you do receive an incoming call, it could be a sales call, scammers, or anything else that you might think about, and want to know too that when we think about with voicemail though that we might think to where you read these messages on here. It says understanding about how to manage the information rather than making it more difficult, and taking our work out wherever we go, and the best process. So this right here is actually discussion right here, a meeting room. It's actually a meeting room that I set on my WebEx account just so that anybody who's reading those messages, and let's just say if there's any recent activity that I would post on there, and then anybody who's reading those discussions, and like anybody say too that anybody who's in your network would be able to read those messages. But let's just say if there's going to be somebody that's going to be out of your network, and let's just say that somebody could also come across your resume, and they're going to maybe want to join the conversation at some point and ask you to, if you can go ahead and join the meeting or join the group, but still, but I'm using this right here as an example of talking about for voicemail right here. So it seems like that when we speak about voicemail, that's another, it's a way, it's a mailbox that contains audio recorded messages from any missed calls that you have gotten on your phone, right? But let's just say though that anybody say that do you prefer maybe the chat column rather than the voicemail? So it's like well really with voicemail though that whenever you do go into that voicemail box, that like we all know the basic steps about having access to the voicemail, right? That you would do be like a PIN number, that passcode and access code or something that you would need to enter in, just to have access to your voicemail, and then you would listen to the messages, any calls that you may have missed that go straight to the voicemail. But a lot of times it sure seems that way that when we speak about voicemail a lot of times, you're wondering to where what about the calls that you don't recognize, and maybe that it's possible that somebody could have called the wrong number, or something like that. So it sure seems that way that when we speak about voicemail though, that you learn to where that whenever you were first introduced to the voicemail back whenever you were a young adult, whenever you first got your first cell phone back those years ago, that the first thing that you figured out was the fact about going to the prompting options to where you can go and set a personal set a greeting tone. So whenever you were to set a voicemail, that you would actually record your greeting, right? It could be an extended absence greeting or a temporary greeting. And so it sure seems that way that I seem like a lot of times that whenever I would record my greetings, though, it sure seems that way that if there's really a right or wrong way of how to record a greeting. And let's just say that if you were to say something like, sorry to miss your call, please leave me a message after the tone, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And or it could also be, you can maybe leave a recording on there saying something like, if you think that you've got the wrong number, then press 3, to be a prompt to more options or something like that. So like everybody else would say too, that if you're going to receive an incoming call to a number that you don't recognize, that maybe that the systems maybe could have that to where that there will be more options available to where any any extended party. And a lot of times you want to know too that do you think that that option would be available to those who have a premium account, or if anything, you'll use it for business or something like that. But a lot of ways, I just really think too that when we speak about voicemail a lot of times, that you want to know too that well, voicemail, that when we speak about voicemail, that it's usually that calls that you don't recognize that go to voicemail, or it's possible that if there are certain calls of the day that you're not able to answer the phone right away, or within certain times. And let's just say that maybe if it could be the doctor calling you and wanting to tell you about the test results a lot of times. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that that the voice messages and the way that our telephones work nowadays, and that you want to know too is that that whenever you do receive a voicemail, a voice message, a lot of times you want to know too that this new direction on how it all works. So a lot of times it seems like that you warn to where it could be maybe days or maybe weeks until you're able to hear and listen to those voice messages a lot of times. So a lot of times you want to know too that why does that seem like the case a lot of times? And like everybody else might even say that compared to these business cards though, that whenever you do whenever you do apply for a job, or maybe if you're filling out any applications or something like that, and you provide a telephone number, right? But then let's just say that your telephone number that may go directly to your inbox. I'm like, it's your profile. And I guess you say that if you have anybody who's going to be following your network, like through a Gmail, or maybe through your email service or something like that, and it seems like that's usually the case, is that through your prompt profile that they're able to verify your information just by to where that if they find I'm like, your contact about your return and your contact information that's based on the email or the text message. So let's just say that if there's going to be a company that's going to be sending you a text message, then you'll be prompted toward that we got these different menus here, and so that's why it sure seems that way, that every time we think about the source of technology a lot of times, and you want to know too that why is it that they can't make things more simple instead of a lot more difficult. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that whenever it comes to understanding about voicemail, and you learn to where that while you're talking to somebody and you get a call to a number that you don't recognize, but a lot of times it sure seems that way, that most of the time with voicemail, do you just send that call directly to voicemail, or do you answer it, or anything like that? But or just if you declined the call, or if anything, I'm like, or if anything that But most of the time, like, anybody say it just goes directly to voicemail most of the time. But on the other hand, that the voicemail box could get full too. The voicemail box, when the voicemail box does get full, and then for sure that that there's going to be messages on there that's saying that the voicemail box is full. And but still, everybody else might even say that that normally most voicemail boxes could hold up to 15 messages. I'm like, most of them you can hold up to 15 messages, but let's just say on average though that if we're talking about maybe every week or so, if you do get maybe one or two voice calls and want to know that people are trying to reach you, and let's just say that you want to know too that some of those calls that could not really even be important either. Some of them could also be a sales call. Some of them could also be about a follow-up about maybe about a survey, or maybe anything about politics or something like that. But on the other hand, though, it seems like that that when we think about voicemail, though, it's like, really, though, that whenever you were first introduced to the voicemail box, so you actually were prompted to those options after you got your own, personal mobile phone. So if you recently upgraded to an iPhone, or maybe to any source of Nokia, or if it's a Samsung, or if it's a Polaroid, or if it's maybe a Sanyo, or any other source of phone, no, and you're 102, that if it's if it's a Stylo, 6 or something like that, or anything such as maybe I'm like any other source of phone model, and you're 102, that whenever you first were looking into voicemail, that you actually were prompted to where that you would be able to listen to your voice messages, right? But most of the time, know that you actually, whenever you do go to your voicemail box, though, you would expect to at least get a phone call from maybe a contact member, somebody in your contacts, or if anything, that you would expect to get something from a friend or family member a lot of times, or from a doctor. And sometimes it's like, yeah, it's going to show up as unknown and unavailable or something like that. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that when we think about that talk about for voicemail, that that whenever we speak about voicemail, though, you check your voicemail, and you want to know too that you want to know too that if that person, I'm like, yeah, if it was the wrong number or something like that, and like everybody else would say too, that really, how do you usually handle that, to where that if you were to be dialing the wrong number, or reaching somebody by mistake or something like that, but on the other hand, that it's like, yeah, understanding about making online bill you pay easier, and rather than thinking about much it is, and let's let you think about what we can better understand. So this right here is actually a meeting room that I set on my account, but still that I'm using this as an example right here, talking about for voicemail, and but still like. Everybody else might even say that, typical voicemail, to where you would be prompted these options, to where whenever you get into that voicemail and you listen to those messages, that you will be told to where that I'm like, yeah, these options, to where if you want to repeat if you would like to replay that message, so you would be prompted at the telephone keypad a lot of times, and so the way I think about it too, though, that any voice messages that you do receive, that you would actually, that there will be an option to where you can actually return the person's call, send a return message, and leave a message on their voicemail. And so it sure seems that a lot of things that I'm actually talking about are associated with, like, if you have like a Skype for Business account or something like that. If you're able to work a lot of those controllers using a premium account to Skype, but this right here is WebEx right here. So this right here actually talks about with discussion with the meeting room right here. So let's just say that before a meeting is started, that these are the options for what you would usually see right here. So if you were to be starting a conversation before you even start a meeting, that there will be this option to where you can add more attendees to the meeting, and you would give the meeting room a name right there. So that's why you see that right there for Matthew Speaks right there. But I'm just saying right there that you're talking about for voicemail, though. That so let's just say that if it did start out with from voicemail, and then by time you check, you see that there was an invite attached to that inbox. So let's just say somehow that you were redirected to the meeting room, and let's just say that happens if you're going to be on your email checking it out. But let's just say that people might say that your phone's going to go and just do its own thing, and the system, your devices are going to just do their own thing and connect you somehow, and stuff that's going to start happening somehow, whichever. But still, on the other hand, when we're speaking about technology, though, that talk about for voicemail, and so you're one to know too that when we speak about voicemail, it's like, yeah, well, voicemail is supposed to allow it to where that somebody can leave you a message about something, and if you missed any phone calls or anything. But a lot of things that I have seen, have actually been associated with, like, if it's maybe yeah, like maybe an option, like maybe on Snapchat or something like that, or maybe Google or something like that, or maybe Instagram or something like that. And you'll want to know too that whenever you were first introduced to voicemail, that what you would actually were do was actually what you were doing. It was seeing if there was any missed calls that you may have missed, any incoming calls that you may have missed from somebody trying to reach you about something. And so that's why it sure seems that way. That whenever it comes to listen to your voice messages. And so you see right here that, yeah, any activity that from this meeting room that you see on here, that the last discussion, the last time you wrote in that meeting room was back in 2017. But still that we all probably think that to where, yeah, if you're going to have an account, and let's just say if it's been maybe a few years since you've been on your Instagram account, and 102 that yeah, any messages that you may have typed in there, and let's just say that yeah, if you were to be connecting with a client, and let's just say that client is maybe going to ask you to go and follow them maybe on Instagram, and let's just say that anything that you're trying to teach somebody about how something works. And so you're gonna read these messages on here, and let's just say that those dates, most of them are gonna be out of date. But let's just say that if you're gonna be reading these messages on here, and which I'm using these messages right here as example of voice messaging, but like everybody else would say too, that voicemails you're supposed to be recording the message data, for the incoming calls, not not for the outgoing calls. So a lot of these messages in this discussion right here will really be for the outgoing, calls. But let's just say if there was any incoming messages coming through. So that basically means is toward it that, yeah, when if somebody is trying to, call in, from their side, and then the way the network usually works is that that there'll be like a little message indicator, usually located on the top right. There'll be like a little message indicator showing that there's an incoming call, or there's a message waiting for you, waiting to be read right there, and just to try and give you that message alert to about that. But on the other hand, that when we speak about voicemail, though, that do we necessarily think about that to where that while we're on the phone, if we receive any incoming calls, and let's just say that if it's a number that you don't recognize, then you could just say it goes directly to voicemail. But it sure seems that way that yeah, when we speak about voicemail, though, it's like if you had maybe more than one account, and let's just say that if you have a voicemail box maybe in your Instagram, or it could also be maybe on Twitter, or it could maybe also be on Snapchat, and you'll want to know too messages that you did receive maybe overnight or something like that, or maybe early morning, maybe around the afternoon time, that you did receive a call, maybe an unread message, from somebody trying to reach you about a project or something like that. So let's just say that I'm like, yeah. So a lot of times you want to know too that number one, that why is it that a lot of the voice messages that you received, as of maybe last weekend or something, over the weekend. So let's just say that if you received a voice message on Friday, but then you were not able to notice that until Tuesday or Wednesday the next week. So let's just say if it took you maybe 4 days to realize that you had a new voice message indicating on your voicemail box. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that the way voice messages work nowadays is toward you go ahead and set alerts on your phone to where you would be able to be prompt to where given those options to where you can actually see that, to where if there's any voice messages that you may have missed. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that really, that when we speak about voice message a lot of times, it's like, really, why does it seem like that there's more than just 3 or 4 simple steps whenever it comes to answering calls and answering messages? And you wonder about that. It first starts out with the fact about, people are going to be asking about your contact information first of all, but let's just say maybe if it's over a cover letter, or maybe if it is over about that somebody came across your profile and they're trying to reach you and want to talk to you about something that they would like to talk to you about maybe if it's job training, or I'm like, job shadowing or something like that. So a lot of times, let's just say that maybe if it has absolutely nothing to do with, I'm like, you were able to retrieve my contact information just by that, it had something, there was nothing to do with, for what the application was all about. But let's just say people might, somebody might say that, they're reaching out to you just because, they're reaching out to you just because that they came across your profile or something like that. So we have our reasons, of course. So let's just say that for the whole, for how the process all comes together toward it, whenever you do have a phone, let's just say on your phone, that if you receive messages or voice messages or something, I'm like, voice messages to where that a client is trying to reach you about, please give me some advice. Hey, I'm calling about a question, it's a customer service question, please call me back or something. So it could be something that's maybe not even, it may not even be in regards to really about what your job performance is really about. So a lot of times it sure seems that way, that whenever you do get a phone call from maybe, from a client, or maybe somebody in customer service, or maybe in the medical lab, and they're wanting to know too that, can you give somebody a message for me or something like that. So a lot of times, I guess you could say that voice messaging, can be used in a lot of ways, really. But, based on my experience, that, you receive calls, and most of the time it seems like that most of them seem like that they're all the wrong numbers. But let's just say that, if we're talking about is this toward really, that, do you really have to recognize maybe that if this person that's trying to call you is in need for maybe some assistance, even though that, we got the wrong number. But I think that, if you are familiar with what we're talking about, can you please help me out? And so a lot of times, like, it seems like that's how people meet a lot of times, and that's what it seems like, that that's how somebody meets somebody, and a lot of times it sure seems that way, that whenever you do think about voicemail box, voice messaging, a lot of times whenever you check your voicemail, a lot of times you may notice that about how many times do you really believe that maybe nearly 3% of some of those phone calls that are the wrong numbers, and some of them that are related to about maybe something about somebody found your resume and they want to call you about something, or maybe from your insurance company or something like that. So it sure seems that way, that the different ways of how we want to explain the situation, right? But on the other hand, it seems like that the first thing that you want to tell them is that, I don't know why, you don't call me at this number instead of calling me. So a lot of times it's like, yeah, if you're getting a phone call even from your doctor, and let's just say that the doctor's maybe gonna call you on the wrong number, and saying that, yeah, we're trying to get back to you about your test results, but a lot of times it's like, yeah, that I talk about for the new direction, especially that whenever it comes to voicemails, you're one to know too that most of the time with voicemails that you go ahead and set a personal, you go ahead and set a greeting on your voicemail and saying that please leave a message. Hello, you reached me and please call me, or yeah, you reached me and please leave a message. Please leave a message, including name and phone number, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And then if you would like to send a fax, please follow these prompted options. And also that if this is, I'm like, yeah, if it's maybe if it is an urgent call or something like that, and or yeah, please you'll press you'll dial this extension or something like that if you are dialing a number by extension or something like that. So it sure seems that way that whenever you do have a voicemail box, so that yeah, if you have an extension or if anything, any memo or notes or notes or something like that you like to include. But the basic understanding about voicemail, right? But anyway, I thought that gives some good advice for everybody about that. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.